Hi.
Hi, that's Josh. Sorry, start again.
Hi. I'm Dapper Dave.
I'm Zach.
I'm going to call you Zany Zach.
Hi,
Because I have an adjective and you don't. I don't want you to feel unspecial.
Zany though.
What else starts with Z?
Exactly. You're getting
Okay,
the.
Zebra Zach.
I knew you were gonna do that.
Anyway, we are here to talk movies once again. In particular, Pacific Rim, which we
Yes.
saw a few days ago. We waited a little bit to see if we would change our minds. I didn't.
I didn't either.
It's awesome. Go
Yes.
see it. Why are you watching us? Go
Yes.
see it.
Go see the movie, which I think people are only being harsh on it because it really is just giant robots versus giant monsters.
Well, I think there's a bit more to it than that. Or I at the very least think that the characters are like a common complaint I keep hearing, or a common comparison I keep hearing, is this movie to Transformers or Independence Day.
I can more see Independence Day.
I can kind of see Independence Day too, but what I'd say that sets this movie apart is that while the characters are not, like great Shakespearean characters, they are all very likable and relatable, and they're
Except for one.
except for one, which I'll get into. There is one character who's a problem. We'll be getting into that in the spoiler section. But a comparison that I would more make is it's like the Avengers with giant robots, in that their characters are simple, but
and
they're
better aliens.
That's kind of a spoiler, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
They probably knew. But like it has that same sort of epic spectacle feel to it. That oh shit, I bumped the camera. That a minor earthquake blew through us just for a
Anyway,
sec.
back to what you were
But
saying.
it also has, well, the characters are not, like deep or intricate. It's not, like trying to think of an action movie that actually has deep, intricate characters.
Lone Ranger. No,
It's not like what Man of Steel was trying to be. It's not dark and broody and all self-absorbed and emo. Well, no, that's what Man of Steel kind of was.
At points it felt like it was going there, but it didn't.
It never goes there, and they work hard to make the characters likable in their stereotypes.
Yes.
And they even manage to avoid stereotypes that I was worried they would get into, but they don't. And I'll be getting into that in a little bit. The fights, though, are in fact the real draw of the movie. I'm taking off the hat. It was a bad idea. I don't know why I ever got that hat.
You need to relax about the hat. He's obsessed over the hat.
I'm putting the hat back on.
See what they tell you.
Or I would say it's the anti-Star Trek Into Darkness. Whereas...
Yes, even though both of them had good pacing.
You and the pacing. Don't compliment Star Trek Into Darkness.
It had good pacing.
Enough people on the internet are complimenting it. Now I'm going to be anti-Star Trek Into Darkness, and you're going to be pro-Star Trek Into Darkness.
No, I'm not. I'm not
Do
pro.
you
The
want
movie...
that?
The movie... I'm sorry, we're getting sidetracked because of him.
Yeah.
Star Trek Into Darkness wasn't a good movie. I stick by that. But it had good pacing.
I find the pacing debatable.
Pacing doesn't necessarily
We're not talking
mean a
about
good
Star
movie.
Trek.
No, I know. I'm going back. But Pacific Rim had good pacing.
Yes, it did.
See?
It's very well paced. But here's where I feel a connection is made. Movie Bob did a mostly negative, but not really passionately negative, in the same way I was passionately negative type review of Star Trek Into Darkness, where he described it as a movie that has, on the one hand, is far too complicated and yet feels agonizingly simple.
Right.
This movie is both very complicated, but it maintains being enjoyably simple.
Right.
Where I feel like here's where the key difference is made. Star Trek Into Darkness used the complications to constantly change the plot without moving the characters forward. This movie uses the complications to explain the character development without ever changing the dynamic.
Right.
It's always robots good, monsters bad. If you can keep track of that, you don't really need to know about all the extra bits. That's just there for like
You
people
just
who-
spoil that there's no real huge twists in the movie, but yeah.
There really aren't that many huge
I
twists,
know,
but you
but
know
that's-
what? I like
you don't
that.
need a twist.
Every movie these days has to have some big twist that makes everything like where they like have to advertise, oh, the movie's more than you think it is.
Yeah.
Who is the mysterious Benedict Cumberbatch? What is the Mandarin's plan?
The interesting thing here is, even though we're saying that these characters aren't great Shakespearean characters, a lot of what's unknown is their background, or what motivates the characters that you do. I don't know. I like learning like Idris Elba's backstory.
I like learning him. I like the Marco, the Asian
Yeah.
girl. She was.
And
I really liked her. She was really
right.
fun.
And well, and I can't get into talking about the Grumpy guy's backstory without spoilers, so I won't.
Well, we'll get to backstories in a minute, but like the Australian guys, they were
that's
really cool.
Yeah.
And
even the characters that were barely there, we got introduced to them, and then they get disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like they have like 2 Russian robot pilots and 2 Chinese robot pilots. 3 Chinese robot pilots, and they're not really developed that much, but they fit like their stereotype, and they're really there as background. They're there to fill out the cast.
Right.
So they're fine. There is one person who's annoyingly bland. I'll get into him. But to wrap up the spoiler-free section of the review, I had a lot of fun.
I did too, and having seen it in both regular and IMAX 3D, see it in regular vision, the IMAX 3D doesn't add that much.
And I would actually go as far as to say I think this is the first great action movie of the year, if not the first great movie of the year. Because this, let's be fair, this has been a pretty lukewarm year.
To be fair, but I did like The Lone Ranger.
Yeah, you're the only one.
My dad likes it too.
You two are the only ones. I've only seen clips, and I'm...
Yeah, you haven't seen that enough.
I saw the vampire CGI bunnies.
Yes, nature out of balance.
Yeah, I saw that. CGI bunnies.
We're getting off The Lone Ranger because he's a hater.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen it, but I've heard, and I don't think you're going to win anyone over. I really don't.
You have to experience it.
But we're here talking about Pacific Rim. But even with that, like, there hasn't been... Like, Iron Man, I think, was good. It wasn't great.
Pacing wasn't good.
Star Trek, we both hated.
Yes.
Immensely.
Man of Steel.
Man of Steel, I'm not even sure I can say I like it anymore. I just nothing it.
And I think that's it. Okay.
Evil Dead, I guess, kind of counts.
Yeah.
It was Evil Dead. I think is actually probably the closest I came to really liking a movie, and even then, all the other Evil Dead movies are better.
Okay.
Like so, this has been a pretty weak year, but even in a strong year, I think Pacific Rim would be a really good movie. And go see it. Why are you seeing Adam Sandler? Don't see Adam Sandler. See Pacific Rim.
Now on to spoilers.
Now into spoilers. The plot of the movie, in case you haven't seen the trailer or can't figure it out from the poster. Giant monsters start appearing. Kaiju. Well, they're called kaiju later on. They are giant monsters.
Yes.
Start appearing out of this dimensional rift that appears in the Pacific Ocean. I think this is like a year from now in the movie's
universe. When it first starts.
And they begin just destroying everything because they're giant monsters. And that's
I actually really liked how the movie did the voiceover and explained how things started, and then how we started winning with the building of the robots. I liked how it paced through so that it started us where it started us. This hasn't just started; it's been going on for a long time, and now it's getting worse.
The robots incidentally are called Jaegers. We'll call them Kaiju and Jaegers from now on, I guess. Otherwise, we'll get corrected.
Or we'll do what we want, and you can just...
Yeah, fair point. The robots are called Jaegers. Why? Because the scientists were drunk.
Yes, and we'll get to the scientists.
Those scientists were awesome.
Yes, they were awesome, but we'll get to them. We aren't there yet.
So humanity begins fighting back with the robots, and for a while it works, but
And people are making toys.
And people are making toys of the monsters and the robots, and it's become sort of a pop culture phenomenon where it's appearing on talk shows.
Because you really, at first, only have like one monster a
Although
year.
the pop culture stuff, something I feel the movie did very well is they have all these world building elements, but they keep them in the background.
Well, that helps build a living. They aren't throwing it in your face. That's what's nice about the intro thing, because the intro thing really built up a living world in the background, and then you didn't really need as much reminder of that throughout the movie.
Yeah, but even like throughout the movie, they keep saying, and here's how kaiju affected this, and here's how kaiju affected that. But it's never a big thing. It's always just
but it just helps flesh out the world.
Yeah, and I really like that. It's world building without taking away from the story.
Right, other than that first, when they're world building and establishing the story in the first 3-4 minutes.
Yeah.
Which you need anyway.
That segment may have gone on a tad too long, but otherwise...
A tad bit, but only because it was narrated by the guy you don't like.
I don't dislike him.
Well, that's the problem with him.
Okay, let's get to the one major issue I had with the movie.
The main character.
The main guy's dull.
Yes.
He's really, really dull.
He's like mayonnaise on white bread.
They sort of try and give him personality. I'm not sure if this is the actor or if it's the writing or if they cut out chunks of him that were supposed to flesh him out more. But he's definitely the weak sauce in the otherwise great sandwich that is this movie. And all the other characters, as stock and one-dimensional as they are...
Maybe his brother...
Well, we don't know his brother. His brother gets killed, like, immediately. Although even his brother had more personality. I got the sort of beleaguered and yet somewhat, the passionate yet somewhat, sort of...
This guy loses his brother and ends up working on a wall board.
Yeah, that's actually the part I was getting to. We're now in the movie takes place largely in the later years of the Kaiju War. I think this is supposed to be, like, 8 years into the Kaiju War.
Okay, one problem with this movie is just the math, because in the first, 20 minutes, we skip forwards years a couple times.
Well, we skip forward 7 years, and then we skip forward again.
8 years?
I think they skip forward a year after the first fight.
Right, and then we skip forward 5 years after his brother dies.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. After his brother dies... They skip forward again. That's when Idris Elba comes to find him.
Oh, yeah. Well, then they only have 2 skips. They don't skip forward after the battle.
Okay.
So 12 years into the Kaiju War.
Or 20... Okay, whatever.
The majority of this movie takes place, in the final throes of the Kaiju War. The Jaegers are no longer as effective as they once were, because Kaiju are apparently adapting to battle the Jaegers, which leads to some really cool fight scenes. And the their plan is, the governments are all getting together and their plan is to build a wall. And here's something else I kind of want to talk about. For all the stupidity that people talk about this movie, I make the argument that this is actually a very well done commentary on natural disasters and our reaction to them. In recent years, we have seen a large swell of natural disasters. We've had was it earthquakes hitting Japan?
I believe so. There was the earthquake.
There was the earthquakes. There were all the hurricanes. We've had the smog cloud in England.
The tsunami.
We had earthquakes in Philadelphia. They're small. We had earthquakes on the East Coast. They're small, but we don't get earthquakes.
Anyway.
And I feel like the Kaiju are meant to sort of represent these growing natural disasters. And something that I note is they say in the exposition, when we began it, we were all very much, it united the world, and we were all very much about recovering from this and keeping it from happening again. And then we lost interest.
Right.
And we live in New Jersey. Me and Zach.
Yes.
And everyone who makes New Jersey jokes, fuck you.
Hey, even Abraham Lincoln made New Jersey jokes.
I just mean to this video.
Fine.
And we're fine where we live, but large parts of the state are still recovering from Hurricane Sandy, which you may recall happened not even a full year ago.
Yes.
And I remember when it first happened, we got hit, and there were all of these outcries about recovery, and all of the states were getting unified, and everyone was interested. And then it just stopped. People stopped caring. There was a lack of interest, and everyone just went back to their usual lives long before any recovery process was completed.
Same thing happened on a larger scale with Katrina. They're still
Exactly.
recovering from Katrina.
Exactly.
That was
Katrina,
years ago.
Katrina, the same thing's happening in Japan right now. I'm fairly certain I'm forgetting a lot of other international ones. I because I'm an American douchebag, I mostly only know about stuff that happens in the country. But I feel like that's sort of the main point of this movie, is this idea of how much responsibility do we actually have in natural disasters, and how much, like, at what are we giving up too early? At when is it proper to say we are done?
Yes, but how does this tie back to the wall?
I would say that would be a sort of Levy's commentary.
Ah.
But mostly I would say that it's about, like, look, it's sad that it happened to these people, but so long as we can protect the rich people and make sure it doesn't happen to us.
Except they make the wall look exactly as effective as a Band-Aid.
Well, that could also be argued that that's where the Levy commentary is. I'm not saying it's perfect commentary, but there are two things I want to say about the commentary. A, if that's what they were going for, I feel they did it very well, because it's never... Again, I want to make the Star Trek comparison. Star Trek makes a 9/11 commentary, and they throw...
Frying pan to the head?
Frying pan to the head. Badong, 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 badong.
Here,
9/11, 9/11, 9/11, 9/11.
Here, it's like a feather filtering through your thoughts.
Yeah, it's blunt when they make it, but they never overuse it. It's never overused. It's never overdone. It's always just like, here's a thing and here's a parallel you can make.
Okay.
Like, I remember they talk about there's a group of religious people who believe kaiju are a sign from God that we're wicked, and therefore, like, that when we stop being wicked, the kaiju will stop coming. The whole, like, Hurricane Katrina was caused by gays. Commentary. You could make that, like, every time there's a natural disaster, someone comes out and says, it's God punishing us for our sins. I feel that this was a really good comparison. Second of all, it's not a 9/11 commentary! Oh my fucking god, how many 9/11 commentaries have we seen in the past 10 years?
None. No, I'm just kidding.
Star Trek, Iron Man. You could make an argument that the entire Iron Man series is just a 9/11 commentary. You could make an argument that basically all the Marvel movies are some way a 9/11 commentary, with the possible exception of Thor, which isn't really about anything political. I think I'm fair to say. Skyfall, The Dark Knight. So much of this, I feel like that horse has been beaten to death so hard, especially in these types of movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so just to see something trying something new, I was so happy to see that.
Fair enough.
And so that's what I want to say on that.
Okay.
The fights are awesome.
Yes.
Is there something you want to talk about that we're up to, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay, but the plan is now they cut funding to the Jaeger program to build this wall, which, as we said earlier, they established doesn't work.
Right. Well, they established after they cut the funding.
Yeah, like, it's long after they cut the funding.
But Idris Elba, who pretty much runs the Jaeger program, we don't see anyone else really running it. Him and bad hair, bad shirt guy.
There's this guy with, like, a mullet and, like, he's dressed like the Doctor from Doctor Who basically, with the bow tie and the jacket and the shirt and...
He really looks like someone running mission control out of the 60s for NASA.
But you know what? He was pretty cool.
He was cool.
He was cool. That's the thing. All of these characters are cool except for the main guy who has no real personality whatsoever.
And we also meet the scientists right around.
The scientists, we have, oh god, I can't remember his name. Guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Who they made
look like my least favorite person.
Yes.
But I managed to get over it pretty quickly.
Mainly because he was awesome.
He was awesome. He was awesome.
And he played off well with his German, British...
I'm fairly certain he's supposed to be German because his name's Gottlieb.
Okay.
But he does seem to come from that British part of Germany. I guess if they have a German part of Krypton, they can have a British part of Germany.
I don't know.
Maybe that's where Alan Rickman...
But these guys really...
Maybe that's where Alan Rickman in Die Hard came from. Although Alan Rickman did a very good German accent in that. But
and this guy did a good German accent, but he just had British mannerisms.
It's sort of... Yeah, he had British mannerisms and it sort of slipped at times.
He was being that very stiff upper lip that's very British.
Well, I think he was going for like the sort of militant German scientist. You will keep your area clean. We are professional scientists. We do professional science.
Yeah, but he didn't sound as angry. He sounded more refined.
He sounded pretty angry. He was sort of a refined angry.
Yes, but you were more angry there.
Yeah, it's weird, but he's also awesome.
Yes, they're both awesome. And they play off each other. You have, what's his name as the glasses-wearing scientist who's like an insane chihuahua running around.
Well, his shtick is that he's like a sort of... They actually call him a kaiju fanboy. And I get the feeling that he is sort of the representation of the fans of the kaiju movies, the old Godzilla stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he would... If that's the case, he's actually like... I've seen way too many... let's put a fan insert character in there, where they make them like the nerdiest, nastiest, like you're almost kind of offended that they did it. Here, he's badass.
Yes.
Like he's not, the toughest guy, but when he pulls through, he's...
Right. And the times when he's scared, anyone would be scared.
Yeah, he's never the wuss, which I really liked. They managed to make him...
The one time that he's really scared, trust me, anyone in that situation...
They have this monster that he comes face to tongue with.
Yes.
And the tongue is like, it's this long coral thing. Oh my god, that tongue.
And he was still probably pretty scared after meeting a certain character, but we aren't there yet.
Anyway, the plan is now that they, using their own funding, are planning a final assault on the Rift.
Yes.
The Pacific Rim, if you would. And they can't get through it. Every time they've tried to get through it with an explosive, the explosives have popped back up, which is why they haven't done this earlier. And now Gottlieb has a plan that I will admit I didn't quite follow. It had something to do with timing.
He didn't... Here's the thing. Gottlieb's plan is the plan they're using. What he's describing is a speeding up of the process, that the monsters are going to be coming through quicker and in bigger numbers.
Okay.
He's using the math from the first time they came till now that there's a steady increase, because usually only one has been coming through. In this movie, 2 start coming through at once.
And then eventually 3.
Yeah,
but anyway, so that's Gottlieb's plan.
Well, Gottlieb's plan is to nuke the Rift.
Yeah, and they're building an assault. So we have Russian guys have a robot, Australian guys have a robot, Chinese guys have a robot
with chainsaws.
It has 3 arms that turn into buzzsaws.
Yes, and there's 3. Now they established that the reason you have multiple pilots, they established this in the first 5 minutes, is because of this drift thing. You need to have 2 pilots or 3, I guess, and.
Well, the idea is, apparently, when you connect with the robot, it's too much for one single human brain to connect with. So what they've done is they connect 2 or more brains together, and then that conjoined brain connects with the robot.
Right.
And that's how it works, which I actually thought was a pretty clever way. That
Yeah.
was a clever way of getting the drama tied into the action.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you see this stuff and it's like action, 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 and now we will have mopey scene. Here, it's all tied together. You get the sort of camaraderie. And that's something I would like to point out. Here's where a bland American guy meets pretty cool, if a bit cliched, Asian girl.
Yes.
Named Marco. She, I think, was the character that all the writers and Guillermo del Toro and like everybody was actually really invested in, but they knew they had to get an American in order to get people to come see it. And her shtick is that her city was attacked by a kaiju, killing her parents, and she has since been raised by Idris Elba.
Yes.
So she wants to become a pilot to get revenge, which leads to a scene. I actually cried a little during that scene. I'm not kidding. And it's not because, like, I saw it coming. It's in the trailer. Everyone knew it was coming. And B, it is cliched as hell. I don't know what it is. Something in the way they shot it and the way they did it. It's so heartbreaking.
What scene?
The flashback.
Oh, okay,
The
yeah,
attack.
yeah.
Where she's being attacked by the kaiju.
And when she's running the weapon.
And when she's running.
Yeah.
And she loses her shoe. The tiny little shoe.
Yes. That he apparently kept for 20 years.
It's symbolic.
Yes. I'm sorry, just Idris Elba kept the shoe.
Well, he sort of raised her as a daughter, so. Like
Idris Elba is the one who saves her.
Idris Elba's the one who saves her. He was a mech pilot before he became like the head guy because of medical conditions, medical issues where radiation from running the earlier robots too long have now affected him. If he runs it again, he will die.
Yes.
Which is also cool. The Australian guys, I think, are the only secondary team that really get developed. But
mainly because about 20 minutes after we meet the other two teams, they get killed off by two kaiju.
It takes a while.
20 minutes.
Well, we have scenes of them glaring at the American guy and the...
Well, they don't really glare. The Australian guy glares more.
During the lunchroom scene, they glare.
A little bit, not a lot.
Okay, anyway, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
They have this...
Well, that's because there's a character that I want us to get to, but I'm trying not to.
Okay, let's just skip ahead to that.
No, okay, where we are.
Sonny in Philadelphia guy comes up with this plan where he connects with a still living section of kaiju brain.
Yes.
And here's where it gets complicated, but it gets complicated in a way that doesn't really matter, which I think works to the movie. Because it's like, oh, if you're into the world, here's more flavor text. If you're not into the world, this really doesn't change anything. It's just a MacGuffin to get him to the next bit.
Right.
Where he discovers that the kaiju are clones being made as part of this army that's being used by this alien race to exterminate us so they can come in and colonize the world for reasons we never really get into.
Right.
If they make a sequel, that would be kind of interesting to talk about. You know, sort of do the Godzilla thing where now some of the monsters are good, maybe. But for this movie, it's really not important.
Right.
They were there.
So he kills the little bit of kaiju brain he has by doing this.
Yeah, and he almost dies himself.
Yes.
And they go...
Mainly because the machine he's using is... He made a drift machine from junk. I think that we would ignore... It was pretty awesome. Especially as Gottlieb says it.
And he has that great line... If this works, haha, I win. If I die, this is all your fault and I win again. Somehow. I just love the sort of logic that these two have. Because they're very combative, which is a lot of fun.
Right, but they work together.
Like, they're working together, but they're very combative, which is always fun. It's sort of that alliance by convenience, where two people who don't really like each other still are forced to work together. Those are fun to watch when they're done right.
So, after he tells Idris Elba this, Idris Elba sends him to the person who basically helped fund...
And to Zach's favorite character.
Yes! I have no bones admitting
Hannibal Chow, as played by the ever-famous...
Ron Perlman.
Ron Perlman.
Come.
And even though he never gets into a robot or fights, he's still goddamn badass.
The guy is flipping a pocket knife around.
And incidentally, he hangs out in like the ultimate Guillermo del Toro lair. Guillermo del Toro has like these sort of recurring themes with his lairs of like, I want dark reds and gold, so it's very Asian-like, but I also want floating body parts. And he also has a really weird thing. They established kaiju bone powder can be used as sort of a Viagra substitute. He has a weird fascination with Viagra substitutes. Because that was in The Devil's Backbone. I believe that was in Kronos. That may have been in Mimic. What is your deal, Guillermo?
Actually, I think that at least in when they did the market scene in Hellboy 2, there was something.
Yeah, probably. He has this odd fascination.
Yes.
I want to talk about supernatural ways to get your dick up. Why? Because I do. And I'm trying not to do an accent. I think I'm going Indian. I don't know why.
There were no twists in this movie.
Well, there are a few twists. They're just not like major twists.
So yeah, Ron Perlman shows up with gold-plated shoes.
I think they're more just silver-plated.
Silver-plated.
Either way, he has these shoes and he has these sunglasses.
Yes.
And he has a switchblade.
And he's acting as cool as Ron Perlman does. If Ron Perlman's 8 minutes are a reason to see this movie.
There aren't even any monster attacks in his 8 minutes. But
there is.
Well, there is one.
Yes.
We'll
get to that.
They send him to that. Hannibal finds out he merged with a kaiju brain.
And calls him an idiot.
The reason, because kaiju are apparently all mentally connected as well. So when he merged with that brain, now all the kaiju know that the humans know their origins and how they're coming about. So now the kaiju are coming after him.
Right. Which
leads to possibly the most awesome fight in the movie, except maybe for the final fight, which is pretty cool.
Yes, so you have, before this, you've had it established that the team they made with Marco and Bland American Guy doesn't really work, so they get 2 kaiju signatures, so they send out the Russians, the Chinese, and the Australians.
We kind of covered that scene because that's where the flashback occurs.
Well, we covered, right.
The idea is, during the mental connection, Bland American Guy lost track of stuff because he remembered his brother got killed at the start of the movie. Did we establish that?
Maybe.
His brother got killed at the start of the movie.
Well, he was still linked to him.
Yeah, and so he flashes back to that because it was a traumatic event that he never deals with again.
Hey, he dealt with it on the wall.
You know, so what? This is supposed to be a thing he has to overcome. He never does. They never mention it. Like, I've heard complaints from people about Iron Man 3. Oh, they have this whole PTSD thing that ends up going nowhere. They at least had a scene with him and the kid where he kind of deals with it. They set him on the path to dealing with it. Here, it's just dropped. They never bring it up again. But his memory triggers Marco's memory, and she can't come back from it because she's not a trained pilot. And so she gets lost in this memory of the attack.
Right.
And
Idris Elba is badass.
And they have this cool scene where Tech Guy with the weird hair gets to dismantle the machine in order to take it out. He's cool like that. He's very practically thinking, which is a lot of fun with the character. And we had 2 Australian guys where the idea is the Australian guys are a father-son team.
Which you don't really find out until the
Yeah, but I think that's part of the thing is the father never treats the son like a son. He just treats him like a guy.
Yeah.
And that's sort of building up to that reveal.
Right.
And they're a lot of fun, too. Like, younger Australian guys a dick.
And they have a dog. I'm sorry, the dog's important, okay?
The dog has more personality than Bland American Guy.
Yes.
But then, anyway, so...
I want to get to... I think their crime of awesome comes in this, and stupidity comes in this fight coming up. The Australian guys.
So anyway,
I don't want to jump to
Marco and Bland American Guy. I know he has a name. I don't remember what it is. He's that bland.
He's one of the main characters from the motorcycle thing that Ron Perlman was in.
Uh,
Sons of Anarchy.
yeah.
I think he was Ron Perlman's son, but I can't remember. Charlie Hunnam. And he was okay in that. He had a beard and he could actually kind of act, but he can't in this.
I'm not entirely sure. I get the feeling like he had stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like. Like
But-
he had a subplot that never they got around to.
Anyway,
So they got benched. So they send Australians, Russians, and Chinese to fight these two kaiju, only to discover that A, these kaiju have adapted, and B, they have EMPs.
which partially no one ever comes out and says it, but they have a hive mind, so they linked with the reason they have an EMP could be because they finally found out how the robots run from the scientists.
I think that's fair to say, and I actually kind of got the feeling that they were adapting in the fight.
Oh yeah, they adapted as they went, but they come out with an EMP.
And they have this fight scene in the ocean, and it's pretty badass. We get to see the robots. Chinese guys get taken out. Russian guys get taken out.
After trying to buzzsaw one to death.
Yeah. And they go down with honor. Like
Yeah.
they it's not like they just get boom and they're done. They get the proper fight scene.
But then the Australians get EMP'd.
They get EMP'd, and so now they're stuck there.
And then we discovered that the robot that Blind American guy and run is analog, not digital.
Well, it's nuclear powered.
Nuclear powered.
Is their thing. But the idea is like it's all self-contained. It's not
Right.
wirelessly connected to the base like
Right.
Australian guys were. So they didn't get affected by the EMP. But Australian guys are stuck there. Older Australian guy's arm is broken because he
Yes.
got it broken in the fight.
And the kaiju is coming closer and closer to them.
And they're like, we're the only thing standing between the kaiju and civilization. We can either wait here or do something stupid. And they grab a bunch of flares. And
And
they
go out to the top of the robot and shoot them at the kaiju.
and it's so cool. And then the main guy's robot shows up.
Yes.
The robot has a name and I can't remember it. I need to see
Yeah.
this movie again.
So we've gone from flip. So here is what we like to call the escalation war.
Yeah, if we're continuing our comparison to other movies, you brought up a good point in the Man of Steel review. Do you want to repeat it or should I repeat it?
In the Man of Steel review, you had the one great first fight with everyone in Smallville.
Yeah, although you do kind of have to ignore the fact that Superman threw everyone into Smallville to fight there, but
Okay. I'm just saying, so you have that one fight.
It is
No other fight rises. Every fight then is on that level. There's no escalation.
Yeah, a good example of escalation in the action scenes, and I know everyone uses it, but that's because it's such a good example. For a Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
we have the slow build. First, we have the proper opening where we just see the rebels getting trashed.
Right.
Then we see the slow build of Anakin. We have them infiltrating the Death Star. We have them fighting all of the ground troops, but they're not dealing with anything in space. We have the fight with Obi-Wan, and everything builds and builds, and the
And
action
then you
gets
have
bigger and bigger.
And then you have them chasing them from the Death Star.
Yeah, but it's always the stakes are being raised, and
And then you end with the epic space battle at the end.
the stakes are being raised, and the foe they have to defeat is always being raised.
Right.
Superman didn't really do that. They kept it at one level, and they sort of had to keep it at that level throughout the entire
They
thing.
raised it too quickly.
Exactly. Here, we start off with a single kaiju being taken out by a single robot, and it's a tough fight, and you feel the stakes, but there's room to grow. And here we now have two kaiju. They just took out three of our robots, and we're stuck with one guy fighting two of them. And then we get this badass bit where he brings in a boat.
He brings
A fucking cruise liner.
and beats it over the head.
And beats over the head with like a samurai warrior. He just grips the thing and starts beating on
Sarah, it's almost like a troll at first. He's dragging the boat behind him. So, and then the thing has been beat to a pulp, and then the kaiju opens up and it's got wings.
Yeah, after this big fight scene in the city where you think, oh, they finally got the upper hand. Nope, it got wings. Now it's carrying them into space.
We've already killed one of the kaiju, right?
Yeah. That one, as I recall, they sort of like shoved the rockets down its throat so that it would explode. That was also pretty epic, but that wasn't quite as quotable.
So then, this suddenly pterodactyl-like kaiju comes back and picks them up, carries them into space. And then, are we there?
Yes.
They have the robot has a sword.
It has 2 swords.
Yes.
It has swords in its arms.
And it's awesome. And they slice.
And and Marco starts talking in Japanese about how this is to honor her family, and it's like right out of an anime at this point. It's just an anime in live action form, and then they're falling into. They land in a stadium, but they have this thing in their chest, and they use that to slow their fall.
Yeah.
And oh my god. I remember watching that fight and going like, what are you going to do for a finale?
Oh. I know, I had the same thought, but trust me, they have a finale.
Where can you go from here? Then they go there. We're not there yet, because we have badassery with Ron Perlman.
Yes.
First we have badassery with the scientist guy, because after almost getting eaten by a kaiju, he goes back to Ron Perlman's place, where he's like this tough gangster guy, and he glares Ron Perlman down. Yes! This face right here, this is my face in the movie.
Yes. Ron Perlman gets good because he wants a brain.
Because he wants a brain. He needs a brain. He needs to figure out how they're going to get past that gate.
Right.
And so they now go to take from the dead kaiju, hoping to find a brain they can mine.
And in the crew that's going to get the secondary brain, here's a heartbeat.
Turns out the kaiju was pregnant.
I don't know.
Which does raise the question, if they're clones, why is she pregnant?
And why would they send a pregnant one through? But
that may have been an accident. Maybe there was a problem in the...
There could... You know what it could be, and there... Theoretically, in the cloning process, if you have a... There could be a clone of somehow that she could end up pregnant from the cloning process. It could have just happened. Anyway, Kaiju's pregnant.
Also, that I'm fairly certain that's a reference to the giant monster movies, where a lot of them would have baby versions of the monster that appear like during the fight or something like that.
Exactly. And their cloning is probably better than ours, because I don't think at this point we can clone anything that can reproduce.
Well, it's definitely better than ours. I mean, my God, look what they make! We can't make that! New rule to scientists. Are you working on cloning giant monsters? No? Then consider your life choice.
Anyway.
So the pregnant kaiju bursts out, eating the crew.
The baby kaiju.
The baby kaiju. Then it bursts out, chases...
Ron Perlman has disappeared at this point.
Ron Perlman, here's the thing, as badass as Ron Perlman is, he's very good at getting out when the danger comes.
Yes.
His character's just really good at that. And the umbilical cord gets wrapped around the baby kaiju's neck. And so as it's chasing scientists, dude, it strangles and dies.
And as soon as it dies, Ron Perlman comes out.
Yeah. I knew that was going to happen. It born from a dead mother, like, way too early, got the umbilical cord. Yeah, and he stabs the dead kaiju in the face.
Yes.
And then he pulls it back all confident, and then it eats him!
The baby kaiju eats Ron Perlman, and I believe for the next 2 minutes...
You blanked. You just were like...
I kind of missed what happened for the next 2 minutes. You can tell. I was just kind of frozen.
Scientist guy gets... They regroup. We learn that Idris Elba is sick. They build the machine. German guy goes to meet with American guy, and they begin building the drift machine that they're going to connect directly into the now once again, dead baby kaiju's brain.
Yes.
Well, it's still got enough life in it. I think
Right
by
there
this,
on the streets of Hong Kong.
I think by this point you'd recovered.
Yes.
But you were like, wait, what? it was like, if you watch the Spoonie videos, do you remember the one where Red Brown gets killed by regular woman guy? It was like that. I turned to him and he's just like...
I know.
You did not see that coming.
No, I didn't.
See, there are twists. Movie has twists.
Yes.
And they drift and they find out that the rift only opens for kaiju.
Signatures, yes.
Yeah.
So, even though they discover this in the middle of the final fight scene.
Yeah, now they've launched the final two robots. Idris Elba has teamed up with younger Australian guy in the Australian
And they got
robot.
a very touching moment.
Yeah, they have a very touching moment where the Australian father and the Australian son bond, and they're like, I would do it. Okay, they're not like that. I was going to say something heartwarming, and then my brain farted. But they have a cute little scene. Marco and bland American guy have a cute little scene. Incidentally, were they supposed to be in love? Marco and bland American guy? Because it felt sort of borderline. I wasn't sure if it was a close personal friendship or a romance. Because if it's not a romance, kudos to the movie for that. If
No. At some point, he ends up seeming like he's asking her out and then saying he has terrible timing. So I think it's supposed to be a romance.
Well, it's just like they never kiss. They never...
Didn't they kiss at the end?
No, they don't. They hug.
Okay, whatever.
I don't know. I don't know what's...
They weren't... They didn't really build up a romance, which kudos to the movie.
Yeah. I guess it's one of the many things that's just in the background. They're very good at keeping stuff in the background, so it's there and it can be built upon. I'd be interested in seeing like comic books or something like made of the smaller elements. But at the same time, it never feels like, why aren't they focusing on that? What? We're focusing on giant robots fighting giant monsters? I want to know more about the secret black market monster organs.
Well, I would like to know more about that because
it
involves Ron Perlman, but you know.
Yeah, but like you're not pissed off that the movie didn't do that. Like
no.
It gives you... You're like, wait, what's that? It's a secret black market thing where they sell kaiju organs. Oh, okay. Like, it's very good at making you cool with it.
Yes.
At no point did I feel like, why aren't we focusing on that? Why aren't we focusing on this? No, it felt very appropriate.
Yes, very well paced.
Very well paced. Also, one other thing that I want to give kudos to the movie for not doing. Based on all the trailers and all the marketing, I was certain we were going to get the Top Gun relationship where bland American guy was going to be like, I don't need a partner, or I'm not going to work with a girl, Asian, insert stereotype here. And he was going to be like the rebel without a cause. And girl, and Marco was going to be like, well, I'm the uptight prick who's...
Whereas it was more both of them kind of going against Idris Elba. Until he gave...
Like, they kind of set that up at the beginning, but they drop it very quickly. They have a fight scene, they bond, and then it's done. We're like, we're friends now. And Marco's like, okay. And we're like, friends. And now it's really just about getting Idris Elba to let us team up.
Well, the fight scene was more because there was more going on than him not wanting he wanted the best. Yeah, I know, but
that's sort of like... Before that, they were kind of having this thing where she's like, I don't think you're the right man for the job.
Oh, yeah, those instances, right.
But immediately after that fight scene, they're like, we've bonded.
Yeah, but then you have Idris Elba.
Yeah, and Idris Elba's there. Like, that I think is sort of like why bland white guy is so bland, because his stuff gets resolved very quickly.
Yes.
Anyway, so
we're leading up to an epic fight scene underwater.
Underwater. The entire fight is underwater. We now have two...
Because the portal, this is right by the portal, which is underwater.
We now have two kaiju left, and German guy's like, wait, there are two? There should be three. Why are there only two?
His weird math thing going on. And they're two class 4s. We're working this like hurricanes, I guess.
And German scientist guy and scientist guy from Philadelphia. I'm just gonna call him from Philadelphia.
Okay.
Decide like, you know what? We've got a kaiju brain. You almost killed yourself last time. We'll drift together and then drift into the brain. And it's a really cool. It's another cool like team up moment.
Right,
where he gets very British there. That's where I really start to go like, are you supposed to be British? Because he says like "by Jove" and stuff, and it's weird.
Yes.
And they drift and they find out about the serial numbers that we already covered. More boring stuff that
serial numbers.
Well, the code that lets the kaiju pass through the rift.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so we're getting a fight scene.
I guess we're lucky that the kaiju didn't have to be alive to pass through the rift.
Yeah. Although, for a moment, I thought they were going to do a thing where they were going to trick the kaiju into swimming them into the rift. But they don't do that. Which, it's not any worse for not doing that.
Right.
They have this bit where American Guy and Marco are fighting the two kaiju, keeping them busy while they try and get the nuke in.
Right, the nuke is being carried by Idris Elba and...
Australian guy.
Yes.
Younger Australian guy. And then...
the
third kaiju shows up.
The first Class 5.
And it's huge. And its entire lower body are tentacles. Another thing that Guillermo del Toro has a really odd fascination with. And it's just...
And it kind of just annihilates the... which one does it attack first?
It attacks... I think it attacks Australian guy.
Right.
Because the other two tear Marco and...
Right, the other two... and that's pretty cool, too. They use their sword to gut one like a fish.
Yeah, it swims up and they're like, ah! And it splits.
But they're left limping towards...
we did warn you about spoilers. You should have seen the movie by this point.
They're left limping towards the final bid when the last kaiju comes up.
There's the fifth level and the one last kaiju. And what they say is like, we've got the bomb. You have a radioactive reactor. We can't get to the rift. We're going to blow ourselves up.
To take out the...
Australian guy and Idris Elba. And
Okay.
they blow themselves up. And they have this really cool bit where they blow up. That's also sad. Like, Australian guy's dad's there listening to this, and it's very sad. This is a very sad movie. But they blow themselves up, and they have this cool bit where the water was blown away, and the robots are looking around, and then water, boom! And they're heading towards the thing. I think they're carrying one of the smaller ones with them. And then the fifth level shows up.
Yes.
And they take it out with, like, all of their battle gear, and they dive through.
And in a scene that I would describe, I think I described it to you as, fuck off, Gandalf, this is how you kill a Balrog.
Yeah.
They have a sword, it's awesome.
They're flying through, like, this psychedelic, tentacleized version of hell.
Yes.
And they're killing the thing as they fall.
Yes.
While preparing the nuclear reactor.
Yes. And then Bland American guy, they're losing oxygen because...
Yeah, Bland American guy gives Marco his oxygen.
And launches her escape pod.
her. He manages to get to an escape pod, but much later, and he's lost a lot of oxygen, and the explosion, like, launches him back up through the rift.
And...
they have this bit where you think, oh, he's dead.
I believe I am sitting in the theater. I think you...
I started counting down.
And I'm doing, come on. But it happened. He came back. He was alive.
You know what? Of all that doesn't bother me that much. Like, this is the type of thing where that kind of ending makes sense. It's worth it.
It does. Mainly, I just felt it was held a little too long.
A little. It is held a little too long. I know a guy who says, like, he felt it would have been better if they did a time skip and he woke up in the hospital. And I can kind of see that working better. At the
No,
same
no,
time,
I don't
think...
want any more parallels to Star Trek Into Darkness.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Oh, stop it. You were only dead for a few minutes. Which, to be fair, is like one of the few cool lines in that movie, because Bones is the only awesome thing left in new Star Trek.
Yes, anyway. Back to the movie. Pretty much over at this point.
Yeah, they have a wrap-up where they say, like, hey, everyone's cool, the military shows up to clean up the mess, and they're done.
Then we have the credits where we rock out to the awesome music.
And then...
Ron Perlman cuts his way out of the baby kaiju.
I thought you were going to have an epilism. Like, just there, the theater. You were so happy.
I have never been blindsided by a movie like this.
He comes back and he wants his shoe.
Yes.
There's a thing with shoes in this movie.
I don't care.
So the point of the movie is...
Ron Perlman lives.
Ron Perlman lives. This movie is awesome. Go see it.
Yeah.
Just go. Like, I guess if you're not into giant robots or giant monsters, you won't have anything to like here, but why are you here on this earth? You don't belong with us.
Idris Elba is really the driving force through a lot of the movie, and he does well with that.
To an extent, I actually give a lot of credit to the girl playing Marka.
Her too. She gives a lot of emotional strength.
She gives a lot of emotional strength. She has to talk with a very thick accent, and it sounds at times a little anime-y, which I think a lesser actress would not have been able to pull off. She does it very well. And it's never wispy. You never feel like she's weak.
And you never feel like Idris Elba is weak, and he's taking medication throughout the whole movie.
Well, yeah, but Idris Elba's like he's Idris Elba. He can't do weak.
1, don't ever touch me again.
2, don't ever touch me again. That line gets such a laugh whenever when I clean up the theater and I walk in to do checks. People are always laughing at that line. All right, I guess
think
we're
that's
done.
it.
Yep.
See the movie.
See the movie, or we will find you.
Yes.
Goodbye.